What happens when your 20-year marriage comes to an end? You're in your 50s, and after the sadness of it all, you find yourself single and ready to mingle. But the dating world has really changed. Well, here's one idea of what you can do. Pick up a microphone and record the entire dating experience. That might sound extreme, but that's exactly what my next guest today did. I'm Sue West, and welcome to Flourish After 50. For those of you in Australia, I'm sure the voice you're about to hear will be familiar. Hilary Harper has been a regular voice on radio for more than 30 years. In recent years, she's been best known as the host of Life Matters on ABC Radio National. And during her time on radio, she's interviewed a staggering 10,000 guests. Then, in 2024, she turned the microphone on herself, becoming both the host and the subject of the ABC mini podcast series Dated, Love Online After 50. Hilary shares her story of stepping into the world of dating and all the ups and downs of seeking love online in later life. And she interviews experts on this topic too. The series broke download records for the ABC. Welcome, Hilary.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
I'm really excited to have you on the show today. I've been listening to you on radio for years, and when I listened to Dated myself, I thoroughly enjoyed it as someone who also found herself in her early 50s single and needing, not needing, but wanting to find a partner and needing to find the ways of being able to do that. I had, for me, that was a couple of years before Dated. But I thoroughly enjoyed listening to that series. It was wildly entertaining and hugely informative and very human. So I really enjoyed that. And earlier this year, I had the opportunity to hear you present your story again or tell your story again to a live audience at the Generation Women event, which is they're just fabulous events. What was it like for you coming into that live event?
It was very different. As you said, it is a bit extreme, putting your life out there on tape, just an audio podcast alone. And I looked squarely at my millennial colleague who was like, that would be a good podcast, when I casually mentioned that maybe I would ready to get back into dating, and she drove that process. But yeah, the live event was really interesting because I'm not used to being seen. I'm in my, mental tracksuit pants in the radio studio. I don't have to look swish, and I don't have to worry about, I guess, what people are thinking about how I look as well as what I'm saying. So it was a bit of a next level thing, but it was actually really lovely because I love and adore the ABC audience, but the ABC Radio National audience is very different to this kind of cross-generational, women-focused audience at Generation Women that are just, it's purely joyful, isn't it? It's this joyful, deep, heartfelt storytelling event that features people from different decades of a life. And so it was really nice, actually, to be a little bit raunchier and a little bit even less filtered than I am in real life.
I read somewhere that when you were promoting the event in social media that you said oversharing was your middle name, which made me laugh. But for those people listening who aren't familiar with Generation Women, it's storytelling with on a theme, and the theme that night was Meet Cute, stories of first encounters with the people we love. And someone from their 20s, someone in their 30s, someone in their 40s. You were someone in the 50s speaker, and then there was someone 60s and I think 70s, which was just an incredible thing. And as you said, very heartfelt and very connecting and joyful. In the first episodes of Dated, you describe yourself as feeling a bit jaded and sad after the ending of your long-term relationship. And you wondered whether you'd ever find love of an intimate kind again, and feeling unsure initially about whether that's something you wanted and kind of the grief at the end of the relationship. But you reached a point where you thought you might be ready to date again. Can you take us back into that time and what it was like contemplating dating again after 20 years? And how did you know you were ready?
Well, that's the thing. I think about what you were saying at the start of this chat, Sue, about how you didn't need a relationship, but you wanted one. And I had to go through that process of working out what I needed and what I wanted. I think, if you come out of a long relationship of any kind, there's a period of reassessment, or there should be, because you've changed. If you've been in a relationship for 20 years, what you want has changed from when you went into it. And I went into that when I was 32 and had no idea about the world, didn't have any kids. It was really, in a lot of ways, still developing my sense of self. And in some relationships, you can get into a particular dynamic with people and you come out of it and realize that you can create other dynamics. You could be a different kind of person, and that's both frightening and exciting. But also, I think I had really taken on a lot of the ageism that is around us. So I came out of that relationship age 50, nearly 51, and I just thought to myself, oh, maybe I'm over it. Maybe this is it. I've got 2 kids with special needs. I've got a very demanding job. I was presenting Life Matters at the time. One of my very dear friends had just died of breast cancer. We were the same age. So it really felt like life was narrowing for a while. And it took quite a long time of, I guess, that I'd like to say I just took the reins and moseyed on and it was all down to me. But no, I think I had to sit and rest for quite a long time. I had to sit still with all those feelings and let them percolate for a little while. Though I did kind of start to do things that I wanted to do. I started to remember what it was like being me and what I wanted in really little ways. So I would go for a swim or go to the gym or something. And because my childcare arrangement was 4 days on, 3 days off. So I would have these periods of time where I could just switch off from trying to create a new life for the kids that felt stable and calm and loving, and just go, I'm going to crash in my feelings again. But yeah, when it came to actually wanting intimacy with someone, I realized, I have a fantastic friendship group. So I was really lucky in that. And that was quite helpful in being able to process a lot of the ways I was feeling, but also just practice new connections, ways of connecting. But when the dust had settled a little bit after a year or 18 months or so, I realized that I really do love being in relationships. And I love that type of intimacy that you can have with someone where you just go, we are each other's special person, you know? Yeah, I've got really close friendships that are a bit like that, but there's something about, for me, being physically intimate with someone, being physically affectionate with someone. I crave that and I need it. And I worked that out after 20 years of being in a marriage with someone who that wasn't a need for him. So yeah, it was like, okay, I'm fine. I have my job. I have my house. I'm scraping a living. The kids are doing okay. But I do want that extra other thing.
So what did you need to do then to prepare yourself for getting back out there and dating again?
Well, in my case, it was a kind of multi-level thing. So there were actually physical things I needed to do. I needed to be getting some more exercise, and I did. And I found that weight training was amazing because I felt stronger almost immediately. I was kind of proving to myself that I could do stuff. And I had a very difficult relationship with my body up to that point because during my relationship, we had lost 2 babies mid-pregnancy. So we had 2 stillbirths effectively. And we'd had 4 miscarriages and we'd had 2 babies, one of whom had a very traumatic birth. And I had endometriosis and a whole bunch of other gynecological stuff. So I'd had a lot of surgeries and a lot of procedures. I got a patchwork quilt of scars. And by the end of that, I just didn't really like my body at all. So I had to go through this process of reassessment. And I'm not even now really sure how that happened. Like, exercise was great. Spending time in nature really helped. But I think to be honest, there was a process of sexually reclaiming my body while I was alone. And that was really, really powerful. So I was exploring things in my fantasy life that maybe I hadn't felt was okay to explore while I'm in a dynamic with someone else where it's, it's a mutual thing. And then emotionally, I guess I was learning to see myself as a separate person and as a person who developed from that 32-year-old and as someone who was feeling a lot of big things, like different kinds of grief, immense love for my kids and my friends. And I've got one very special friend, Mel, and she said to me, you might worry about having healthy relationships in the future, and that was a worry for me, but you have great friendships. So if you can do it in a friendship, you can do it in a relationship. And it was like this revelation. It was like, oh, yeah, it's just a friendship with sex and an extra layer of intimacy. I could do that.
Like proof of concept exists in your
Exactly.
friendships. Oh, everyone needs a Mel in their life, don't they?
Oh, God, she should be patented. I would make so much money.
So you started to feel ready, and what happened next?
Well, having been in a relationship since 2002, I had zero experience with online dating. And when I got out of it in 2021 too, I realized that that was the only way that people looked for relationships these days. And I had lots of friends who were online. My friend Mel is on like all the apps, the gay ones, the straight ones. And I was like, that's terrifying the way you do things. She had like 40 chats going simultaneously. She would forget people she was talking to. I was like, okay, I need to do things differently. I need to do it slower. I'm going to be very careful about it. But I did have to get her to sit down with me and go, how do I make a profile? Like, what photos do I use? And I picked all the wrong ones, apparently, all the things I thought looked great. Well, only photos of the kids on my phone. There were none of me. So, yeah, that was a process. And it's weird because you've got to work out how to represent your full, amazing self. And how can you do that with 6 photos, particularly when they're all of the kids? So I didn't want any of the kids' photos in there. So, yeah, it's like, oh, here's one of me outdoors and here's one of me in a cool outfit. And Mel's like, sexy, Hilary, got to make it sexy. It's like, ew, I grew up Catholic. I don't know about that. But we reached a level of compromise. But it was more about just getting over that hurdle, I think, of going, I will make some kind of connection with another human being. It took literally months of having the app active to be able to make a swipe. Like months. I would sit there on the couch going, nope, 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 finding any little thing, And finally, I was talking to Mel about it. She's like, I wonder what people think of your profile. I'm like, oh my God, we're going, his eyebrows are wrong. No. Probably going, no, she's on a paddleboard. No, dude, don't do that. So I thought, okay, I've just got to, it's not like I'm getting married to them. I'm just saying, do you want to have a coffee or something? So yeah, there was all these hurdles in my brain, I guess. But there were also hurdles on the apps. Like there's a lot of dudes out there that I would not be interested in. And I was getting hit up by 25-year-olds late at night. Messages would pop in. I'm like, I am old enough to be your mother. But also thank you, because that is quite flattering, yes. I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, it was the winnowing process was very difficult for me.
I imagine the needing to describe yourself to someone else is one process. Like, what is it about myself that I want to share, and how do I see myself now? And the other side of that is, what sort of person do I want to meet? So how had your priorities changed from, the years earlier when before you were married to now?
Well, that was a bit of an unpleasant process, I have to say. I thought a lot about what relationships had been like for me in my 20s, and I realized that I had had an unhealthy, very strong need to be in a relationship. And sometimes that had actually eclipsed the person that I was trying to be in a relationship with. So I made compromises that I should never have made in order to stay in relationships. And I chose people that basically only criteria was that they were interested in me sometimes. So that was really embarrassing to look back on. And I was quite pleased to realize that I had changed. The marriage had been such a big relationship for me, and we had invested so much and we had been through so much. It was very hard to pull the pin on it. But I realized that I didn't want to be in a relationship strongly enough to make those compromises anymore. And it was not worth being with someone where our needs didn't match, because it's just heartbreaking. You're both trying so hard to make it work, and it's just impossible because you're at different levels, or you want different things. You might love each other really hugely, but you cannot satisfy those needs. And some of those needs are things that can't be satisfied outside the relationship. Though I'm a big believer that, you should spread your needs across all your friends and your
Yeah.
workplace and basically a bunch of people, because one person can't do everything for us.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because those things that we now know about ourselves and what's influenced our relationship choices in the past, it's really helpful in hindsight. And I guess that's the thing about being, a bit older, is that we can look back on those experiences and learn from them and know ourselves better, and therefore do things differently. And I often talk about, the opportunity after 50 is to live more on your terms. And it sounds like that's exactly how you approached dating. So,
Well, yeah, actually, I just wanted to say, I felt like there were twin things going on. There was having to deal with my own ideas about my age and realizing that things were great now. Like, I care so little about so much of the stuff I used to care about in my 30s. I don't care what people think of me as much, apart from getting up on stage at that live event where I was worried about lipstick. But yeah, I was sitting there going, oh, my body's a lot older and I'm a bit saggier than I used to be last time I tried to date someone or be with someone. But then I was like, well, lots of people are, so are they. Those men are saggy as well. And frankly, some of them would be just very grateful to be, naked with someone. So I will think about that instead. It's lovely, isn't it, when you realize that getting old is not as frightening as you were led to believe.
yeah, I think that we're a generation of women too who are doing things differently and pushing the boundaries, as we have earlier in our lives, and having the sort of careers that we have, and experiencing our time in our 50s in quite different ways to our mothers and grandmothers. And so it means that we have this freedom to do things the way we want to, a bit more on our terms. But I'm really interested to hear what happened once you swiped and began the dating process.
Well, there were a few chats that didn't really go anywhere and a few fun ones. It was interesting, actually. There was quite a few people who just disappeared. So you chat away and then they'd go away and you're like, oh, right. It's just, oh, your account has been deleted. Okay, I thought we were getting along quite well, but all right. And then there was one or two people that said, I'm going to pursue other things. All the best to you. I was like, that is so nice, just this basic level of civility. That's great. I went on a grand total of 5 dates in the end. And I reckon that probably came out of about 15 chats, something like that, 15 or 20. That the first person that I saw on there was someone I knew. I'd had this, it's really funny actually. I'd had this night of largely chaste passion in about 2001 with this guy who was kind of a satellite to my friend circle. Nothing since, we were otherwise occupied and just didn't run into each other. And I saw him, I was like, oh, it's that guy. Oh, well, I'll just say hi, and maybe we can catch up for a coffee. So we did. Oh, how you been for the last 20 years? Yeah, not bad. And we hung out quite a bit, actually. We chatted. We ended up texting every day a lot. Like, he was interested in a lot of the same things I am, like words and poetry and art and music and photography and death and life and big questions. We got straight into the big, deep questions, and I really liked that. And it was just really lovely too, actually, to have someone who was interested in my day, someone who could bracket the day with communication. But after a while, I realized that I found him quite attractive, and there was a lot of reasons why that would be a very bad idea. So I told him that I thought I was perhaps developing feelings for him. And he went silent for 10 days, which I think is a good indication. and then came back and said that was a bit of a surprise and he wasn't up for it. And I was like, that's fine. I get that. So, I mean, that was a bit of a kind of entree test relationship. And then I met some very interesting individuals. There was a really lovely guy who was a bit younger than me, but had kids, so got it. That was a key thing for me, that they needed to understand that, I have priorities around my kids. But, we had a talk on the phone and we met up, and I knew that we weren't going to be a thing, but he seemed lovely and we had lovely chats. And at the end of the night, we'd been out to this bar and he kind of stood 2 feet away from me and said, I'm just wondering, I thought, how would you feel if I kissed you? And I was like, that's really lovely, Steve, but no, thank you. But it was like, that's really nice, actually, because back in the 90s, last time I was really effectively single, people didn't talk about stuff. They weren't explicit. It was just all this kind of stumbling around and trying to guess what people wanted. And it was awful. Like, there were these weird maneuvers where you have horribly embarrassing revelations that they were not interested, or they were gay, or whatever. They were taken. So that was actually really nice. And there was this other guy who seemed like we might really click. He was interested in words too. Our jobs kind of were similar. We had a bit of banter about 90s alternative rock and indie rock, which was great. And we met up for a walk in the park, and it wasn't until we got there that he revealed that he is actually polyamorous, which is fine, whatever. I tried that in the 90s, in the wild years, and it was not for me. Again, the communication was completely lacking, which is this key plank of polyamory, But I would have liked to know that before, like on his profile. I would have liked to know it before I got there, because I said, oh, well, I'm monogamous, so that's not going to work, Thanks anyway. We had a nice walk and a chat about, being a relationship anarchist, which apparently means that you just don't prioritize any relationships, no hierarchies. I'm like, okay, thanks, bye. And he's like, no, it could work, because, you could just be monogamous with me and I could be polyamorous.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that's how monogamy works. But, I don't think I can see a relationship here. And he said, oh, you can't tell from one date. And I said, yes, I can. And I sidled away. So, yeah, it was really interesting just seeing the different ways that people are talking about relationships now and conducting them. Because I've got friends who are poly as well, and it works really well for them. But, yeah, there's so much, ideally, so much more conversation about it now that makes it work.
And you kept going with the dating.
I soldiered on. I had a couple of dates with some really lovely guys, but they just weren't for me, And I tried very hard to be like, no, but thank you, all the best, here's what is happening, rather than just disappearing. I don't like that idea. Because the whole thing felt a bit like shopping. Like, it was like peak capitalism, just scrolling through this catalogue of people going, no, I feel like something in red today, or whatever,
And a little, I don't know about your experience, but a little transactional as well, that it's not like meeting someone at a bar that you have a full sense of their being and launch into a conversation. It's a little more arm's length and two-dimensional. Initially, at least.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much of that is pheromones for me, being in someone's presence, but you can tell a lot, I think, about the way people laugh and talk and interact with other people, like waiters or their friends, whatever. It's really interesting the way people move, that can be really attractive. You don't get that when they're standing still holding a fish on a dating profile. But yeah, that guy I had 2 dates with, I quite liked him, and he turned out to know people that I knew. So I felt this nice level of safety that he was linked into people that I knew. And he was quite attractive, but I met Jean, and so everyone else went out the window.
What were your first impressions when you met Jean?
I have to be honest, Sue. I looked at his profile and I thought, he's wearing a suit in one of those photos. That's not really my type. I like the scruffy ones. But there was one of him in a T-shirt out at a cafe, and he looked great. He's very cute.
Mhm.
There was one of him looking very dusty, renovating a bathroom, holding a caulking gun. I was like, okay, great.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, this is a Renaissance man I could get behind. And there was one of him being very silly at a dress-up party next to someone dressed as Wonder Woman. There's this absolutely gorgeous young woman dressed as Wonder Woman. I'm like, I'm not sure what message this picture is sending, but great. You like to have fun. But also the words. I mean, the words were really key for me because that was the ridiculous thing when I was making my profile. I was so focused on the words. And no one cares. No one reads the words. They just look at your pictures. And it was so saddening for me because I was, coming out with these literary references and wordplay. And he actually noticed that, which was great. He's like,
Yeah.
I had to look some of the people up, but I found it really intriguing. It's like, ooh. And his profile used the word shenanigans. I was like, hello. I think this is the kind of person. And he just had a little bit of something in his eyes, some cheeky little sense of fun that I was very attracted to.
And so were you chatting with him for a while, or how long before you met in person?
Well, by that stage, I'd had enough of chatting for weeks before I met people. I was like, my life is too short. My childcare arrangements mean I don't have that much time for socializing. Let's get this show on the road, And it's like, I don't like stringing people along. I don't like being strung along. But also you just think, well, it's not a really good use of anyone's time if you meet and then there's nothing. So I think we matched on a Thursday and we met on the Saturday. We found 45 minutes in between all our commitments because I'd signed up to this ridiculous thing. It was called weed dating. So I went to this place called Ceres, which is an urban environment park, and they have a market garden there. And they make you line up across either side of the row of seedlings and then you kneel down and pick weeds and chat to each other. So there's all these couples and, you move around like a do-si-do. It's hilarious. It was really lovely. But I'd signed up for that afterwards. I was like, okay, Jean, I could meet you for 45 minutes in the city and then we go. But, the banter on the chat was so great. I was like, okay, I feel like I'm petrified of meeting someone in person that I might actually like, but I think I can do this. So there'll be something to chat about, even if it doesn't go anywhere.
And so what was it like when you met him?
Well, he was wearing a suit jacket, and I was like, oh, I'm all dressed up for weed dating. I've got my giant boots and my jeans. But he had this beautiful smile, really big grin. He just seemed like a happy, relaxed guy and a talker. So we just talked and talked and talked. And, that's handy. If someone can feel a silence, then you're not worried about it. And we met at a bar in the city and I was like, I don't really think I should drink because I'm going to go after this weird dating thing. I'll just have one. We talked about a wide range of things, which I enjoyed. And I think I just sat there going, this is fun, actually. I'm having fun. I'm not worried about what he thinks. But it's funny because his impressions were so different afterwards. When we talked about it, he was like, you were so guarded. You were so cautious. Like your arms were crossed in front of your chest. You were like very careful. At one point he reached out and he took my wrist because he was saying something about my watch. It's like, oh, is that a Swiss Railway watch? And I was like, yeah. Like, what of it? Thinking, is this a move? Is he making a move? Well, I do not fall for that business. He swore that it would not a move, but it was still very funny. And he's a hugger. So at the start and at the end, he went in for the hug, and I was like, oh, I don't know. Well, okay, sure. With the other guys, I had not been up for hugs. I will shake your hand, and it was weird and awkward. So this was like, oh well, okay, why not? Let's have a hug. And then when we swapped numbers, he said at one point, oh my God, this is so embarrassing to recollect, but he said towards the end of our time, I got distracted from what you were saying because you're so pretty. I was like, you charmer, shut up, give me your number. Getting each other's numbers, whatever. I literally said, shut up.
But did any part of you actually take in that he was saying he was attracted to you?
I don't know. I don't think I believed it was possible. This is awful, but that has been a through line. About 6 months in, I said to him, this is a very elaborate ruse you have going, Jean, pretending to be in love with me. But, it had been a really long time since anyone had shown they were attracted to me, and not since I'd been attracted to anyone. And I've always had trouble understanding when something is genuine and when it's based on a false premise. So yeah, I felt like he probably was, but then, sometimes people can be attracted to lots of people, not just you. So it's not a good indicator of whether it's going to be a strong, long, healthy relationship. But what was great was as soon as we got out of the bar and I was on the tram heading up to the Weed Dating, we texted. I said hello, and he said hello. And then because we've been talking about 80s pop songs, I said, "Is it me you're looking for?" Like the Lionel Richie song, is it? Anyway, and he was like, "Cool. He's like, "Yes, I think so." I was like, "Oh my God, that's a bit frightening. Too soon." But the good thing, I think, was that after that, we had one more date. We had a lunch. Apparently, I was still very guarded, but we talked about a lot of stuff that time. We talked about our families and a bit about our deep inner selves, and that was good. We'd been texting a lot the whole time, and then we had this big discussion, and then he went away for 10 days overseas. And that was great for me because I do tend to rush, or have tended to rush into things a little too quickly, and then I'm entangled, and then I want to stay there and I can't work out what to do. So this was like, okay, he is very cute and I like being with him and we have a lot in common. Let's text like every hour for 10 days. Let's see what's happening at the end.
So really taking a step back, texting every.
Oh yeah, really. So cautious, so guarded. And it's easy to say stuff on text that maybe you wouldn't say in person. So we got really close, and it was a little bit raunchy too, but mainly it was just really deep heart stuff, just intimate stuff. So I felt like we were mates by the time he got back, and that was great. I've never had to do that before. It's always been like, we're having sex now, and so that's it. We're together. And, sex is very distracting and mysterious, so that can cloud things. But this time it was like, I really like you. So then, of course, being an overthinker as well as an oversharer, I was like, but what if when he gets back we're not attracted to each other? What if there's not a physical spark? Oh. So yeah, it was a fun mental process.
I'm really curious to know what your friends were making of all of this, because I assume you were talking to at least Mel about what was going on.
Oh yeah, Mel and my sister are like this little team. So my sister was like, he seems to like tick a lot of your boxes. Does he work for ASIO? Does he have like a dossier on you? This is suspicious. Because she is very protective of me. She's my younger sister, but she's very smart and she's very street smart. And she's seen me cock up a lot of relationships. I know that's not fair, but she's seen me get hurt and she didn't want me to get hurt again. And she knows how much I went through in my marriage and leaving that, how hard that was. So
yeah, she wanted
she's on my
things for
side.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was really lovely, actually. And I was like, I think it's okay. I think he's a good guy. I will keep a watching brief. And Mel was like, okay, are there any red flags? Where are the green flags? What do we know about this person? And I mean, she met him eventually and she's like, yeah, I mean, of course, he seems lovely, but I am here for you. So if he hurts you, he is out on his ear. Okay. But yeah, they were a bit, they're happy for me, but they didn't believe in him. I was like, oh, he's nice to his mum and he bakes and he loves word puzzles and blah, 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 blah. Everything I came up with, they were like, shut up. You're just raising the bar too high for other men. He does housework without being asked. Blah. So yeah, I didn't believe it either. I was like, this is too good to be true. But still picking at that scab and it seems to be fine.
And what about your kids? Where did they come into meeting him and thinking about you having another man in your life?
Well, we did try and leave that for a while. So when he got back, we had our third and I think final date. I don't think anything that came afterwards can really be characterized as a date. We went out for lunch at a restaurant and I had to go home to do work. It was like we had this beautiful kiss in the rain in Lygon Street at the tram stop. Then my tram came and I got on like an idiot and went home. And then he got COVID, so we had to wait to see each other. It was like, ugh, the most 2020s love story ever, I thought to myself afterwards. But yeah, after that, I think after he had COVID, he came around to my house with gluten-free donuts that he had made himself.
Oh my gosh.
Very compelling. I know, it was so lovely. It's like,
Did
oh
you
my
know
God.
he was a keeper at that point, Hilary?
It was the donuts, but I have to tell you, it was the negative COVID test in the little baggie that he was holding up, because that showed me that he respected my boundaries. I was like, we will not be seeing each other until you don't have COVID. He's like, absolutely, no, that's fine. And so, even though we were gagging to be with each other again, he did that. It's like, this is great. So after that, it was on for young and old. Mainly old, obviously, us, but yeah, it was lovely. We knew that we wanted to be together as often as possible, and it was only, our work and childcare arrangements that were the impediment to that. But my kids were deeply affected by the separation, and I didn't want to cause them any more anxiety, and their special needs in some cases make them more anxious. So I was very careful. I kind of started out saying, because they'd been actually really suspicious. They'd seen messages pop up on my phone more frequently than usual. And then they'd started to see these ones pop up from a particular app. And then they're like, okay, and who's this guy, Mum? Oh, it's just a friend I've reconnected with. But they're very smart kids, fortunately. So they knew stuff was going on. So I started saying, oh, look, yeah, Mum's, hanging out with a few other people, but I'm going to take it slowly, and we are going to be a family. We are that family. Your dad lives nearby. He'll always be your dad. I'll always be here for you. Maybe I'll have some friends from time to time. And then when Jean came on the scene, I was like, oh, I've made this new friend. Isn't it great when you make a new friend and, you kind of want to be with them a lot and you like talking to them, just like primary school level understanding. And then it was like, this is a special friend. This is a friend I will be seeing a lot. And then he did meet them. I wish I could say it was a couple of months in, but it was probably only 6 weeks, because it's very hard to see each other unless you see each other with the kids.
Yeah, I was going to
When
say all
you've
those
got,
practicalities come in, don't they?
yeah, because
Mm.
he was week on, week off with his kids, and I was 4 days, 3 days. So it was like, okay, we can carve out like this 3-day period once a fortnight where we're alone. But it was lovely getting to know each other's kids too. That was a whole new layer that I hadn't really thought through. That you're developing relationships with the kids because you intend to be around for a long time. So you've got to get that right as well. And he's been great because he has taken on the learning curve necessary to engage with my kids fully. And his kids are lovely. No notes necessary.
Nice.
I love Gene, and I knew that I wanted to be with him long term. I am a cautious person, and it did take me a very long time to trust that he was telling the truth when he said the same things. But he's very consistent, and he's very engaged and committed. So I began to build up that trust. But it's a different thing to go, well, I'm going to make my kids part of that, because I can survive my trust being broken again. I wouldn't like it. I would be, but I proved to myself I could do it once. I could do it again. So, I had my final life. I would be okay eventually. But yeah, I was very careful. And I realized with his kids too, like they've seen a few women come and go. Like he'd been divorced for 12 years. So they were a bit like, yeah, hi, going to take a while before we really engage with you. And I'm like, that's fair. That's very fair. But, gradually over the months, we build up a relationship where we get along really well now, and we message each other. They send me messages, which is really lovely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was weird because it was a bit like being a teenager again. It's like, oh, I've left my favorite jacket at your house. Oh, you've left your sunglasses in my car. How much stuff should I bring to your house? He ended up like he was seeing me lug this bag of toiletries backwards and forwards every week, because I would end up just going to his house for my 3 days. I was like, well, if you've got your kids, I'll be at your house. Well, why would we miss out on our 3 days? And then on the off week, he would sometimes come here, but his house was nicer and there was a pool on the terrace in the apartment. So I was like, I'll just go to your house. It's fine. Don't worry about it. But he saw me lugging all this stuff, and eventually he just took it to the chemist and bought the same things and left it at his house. I was like, that's a genius solution. Why didn't I think of that
Very
before?
sensible.
I know. And it's like, well, he's clearly in it for the long term, whereas I'm still a bit, picking up my stuff at the end of every visit and taking it home. And that was a key moment for me. I was like, all right, yeah, we can relax into this. And we met each other's parents, and my sister met him. She's like, yeah, he seems lovely. Don't lend him any money. Noted. I'll not be doing that. So yeah, it was really a long process actually. And we kind of tossed around the idea of living together. And I was like, that would be lovely. I love the idea of waking up next to you every morning, but I like having my own space. I love my house. I love your house. But it's nice having both houses. So it was quite a long process of, gradually inching towards the practical life sharing. I felt like emotionally we were there relatively early, but logistically, I still felt very wary about the idea of having someone else permanently in my space, because this is the first space I have ever been able to control fully. Like, I lived in a flat for a year or two by myself, but I had no money, and I had I still have secondhand furniture, but I had really crappy furniture, and a cat. And this time it's like, it's for me and the kids. I want this space to work for us. I can choose what I want in it to a greater extent, and they can choose how they want their spaces to be. And that's really important. So the idea of introducing someone else into it was really, really worrying for me. It took a very long time before I worked out that maybe it would be okay.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, isn't it, Hilary? Again, it's that life stage thing where there is no one way to do this. All the options are on the table. What is it that I want, and what is it that he wants, and how's all this going to work? I love that you describe it in that way. So you talked very publicly about dating, obviously with the podcast and the storytelling events, and I wonder, when you look back on your dating journey, what you wish every woman considering dating after 50 knew at the start.
I wish that they know that they are worth a really good relationship. Like, you don't have to settle. And I know it's like really scary sometimes, the idea that you might not find that relationship. But I certainly feel from my point of view that it's just not worth being in a relationship that's not working, because you never get to work out that amazing person that you are and you can be. And like you said, you can have adventures in your 50s. You can discover a whole new way of being, or just a few little tweaks that make life better. I've done things that I never thought I would do. I learned to ski last year. I took like one lesson and fell over a lot, but never would do that. I had a panic attack on the lift, but I did it. I got back on. So, it's like you feel like the world is going to be narrowing, but it's not. It can expand again, but you need to kind of hold tight to that commitment to you, because if you have that, it's much more likely that you might find a person who respects you as much as you respect yourself.
I love that. And it seems to me that the exploration of dating and finding love has opened your work up in new ways as well, obviously with Dated, but tell us about your new project, your forthcoming book, Love Matters.
Yes, that's very exciting. It's a book of love stories, but really diverse love stories. There is a chapter on me and Jean, which was ridiculous, Sue. I wrote it. It was like massive, this huge brain fart from my youth. Here's every single relationship I've ever had, but it's much smaller now, and it's much more focused. And it was really interesting, kind of looking back over the relationship and writing that. But then doing the interviews with people, like there's an older gay couple from New South Wales. They've been celibate for 13 years each when they met. There's a couple, she was engaged to a man when she met the woman who's now her wife. And there was a long process of like trying to convince this woman, no, I really am gay. She's like, I've dated so many straight girls who turn it back into straight girls. And my friend was like, no, it's true. And there was a couple who spent 26 years together, but only really lived together for about 5 or 6. They were on different continents. They were in different places doing different jobs. It's just been fascinating because I love that about love, that it can look so different, and you have got to find the one that works for you. But it's so exciting when you realize, you kind of expand the borders of your mind and your heart, and you go, I can make it work this way. I don't have to do that thing in the box that I grew up with. It's really good.
And were there any, as you've interviewed people and been hearing their stories, were there any big standout surprises for you?
When I was talking to the woman who's polyamorous, I did find that quite surprising that she has been making that work for quite a long time. She had a girlfriend and a long-term male partner. I think she broke up with the girlfriend, but this has been the pattern of her life. And I was not convinced that it was a healthy long-term project for a lot of the people involved. I have seen people come to grief sometimes with polyamory, but I have been also hearing about really long-term situations where people have multiple partners. So it was interesting to hear about that. The long distance relationship, I was like, how on earth does that work? And my friend B is 80. She's the one who told this story. And that's been a revelation too. Like, her life is amazing. She's a power lifter. She just went to Japan to do championships. She and I are going to take boxing classes, because why not when you're 80?
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a real kind of life role model there. But it's just been lovely. I think the thing that stood out for me in a lot of the stories was the gratitude. People are so happy to have found this thing, even if it's gone from them now, and even if they had to wait a really long time for it, then they're so happy to have experienced it. And it's really nice to know that there is that kind of love in the world, I think.
Oh, yes, I love that. And that, that ties really nicely into the title of your book, Love Matters. It's like this essential experience that we can have in our lives, and love that sense of gratitude. I certainly feel that for myself as someone who's found love in her 50s. And it's a very joyful part of my life too. So if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about how society views love after 50, what would it be?
Well, this is a bit odd and niche, but what struck me was the medical system. I recently went to a gynecologist about some pelvic pain that I've been experiencing, and they were like, might as well just have a hysterectomy. It's like, that seems a little extreme.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And I talked to friends who've had them, and some of them found it fine, and others were like, it's quite a few issues. Like, if they take your cervix, you can have what's called a vaginal vault. You don't have a vagina anymore. That can have some issues around your sex life. I was like, oh my God, I had no idea. This is, it's major surgery, but it just can be really life-changing. And for a long time, medical science has been fine with older women having these impacts on their health and their lives. I went to a female gynecologist, and she said, I'm just going to tweak your HRT and it's probably going to be fine. Why would you whip that out at this stage? You're so close to the finishing line with your uterus. Okay, sounds good. But, the cavalier attitude, that's what I would change. I would make medical science sit down and go, people after 50 are entitled to be sexual beings, whether they're with a partner or not. They're entitled to the full range of experience of their body, and some microscopic attention to detail about their health, and they're entitled to good information about that.
Yes, yes, yes. And it ties so well into the conversation at the moment about medical misogyny. And so giving attention to the fullness of life for women over 50, I think, is absolutely critical. Thank you so much for sharing that. Hilary Harper, thank you so much for sharing your story and your wisdom with me today on Flourish After 50.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Sue. Thank you so much for asking me.
Hilary Harper, host of the ABC podcast Dated, Love Online After 50. You've got to look that up if you haven't seen it already. Hilary's book Love Matters will be published early in 2026 by HarperCollins, and I can't wait to get my hands on a copy, Hilary, and I'll make sure that I put details about that in my weekly newsletter once it becomes available. Thank you so much for listening to Flourish After 50. I'm Sue West. I'll catch you next time. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow in your favourite podcast app. I offer coaching and facilitate small group programs for women just like you and have a newsletter where I share the details of upcoming events. All the links are available in the show notes. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep flourishing.